Good morning, Junior American Lit. Today I'm going to read to you the chapters the 8th Tuesday and the 9th Tuesday from Tuesdays with Morrie, and you are going to fill out the study guide as you follow along with this, and then you're going to save the study guide and submit it. I'm going to show you where it's at on your Schoology page for Junior American Lit. Just go ahead and click the 8th Tuesday through the 9th Tuesday study guide submission, and then you're going to click on this document, download it, and then you're going to go to Enable Editing, and you are going to just go ahead and type your answers right here underneath every question as you follow along with this reading, and then you're going to save it and submit it, okay, to your study guide for your points, for your study guide points, okay? Let me know if you have questions on that, but I am going to go ahead and get started with our Tuesdays with Morrie today. So, thought I had it already pulled up, but I guess not. So I'm gonna go in here and get it for, oh wait, no, here it is right here. Okay, so the 8th Tuesday, we talk about money. I held up the newspaper so that Morrie could see it. I don't want my tombstone to read, "I never owned a network." Morrie laughed, then shook his head. The morning sun was coming through the window behind him, falling on the pink flowers of the hibiscus plant that sat on the sill. The quote was from Ted Turner, the billionaire media mogul, founder of CNN, who had been lamenting in his inability to snatch up the CBS network in a corporate mega deal. I had brought the story to Morrie this morning because I wondered if Turner ever found himself in my old professor's position, his breath disappearing, his body turning to stone, his days being crossed off on the calendar one by one. Would he really be crying over owning a network? It's all part of the same problem, Mitch, Morrie said. We put our values in the wrong things, and it leads to very disillusioned lives. I think we should talk about that. Morrie was focused. There were good days and bad days now. He was having a good day. The night before, he had been entertained by a local a cappella group that had come to the house to perform, and he relayed the story excitedly as if the ink spots themselves had dropped by for a visit. Morrie's love for music was strong even before he got sick, but now it was so intense it moved him to tears. He would listen to opera sometimes at night, closing his eyes, writing along with the magnificent voices as they dipped and soared. You should have heard this group last night, Mitch. Such a sound. Morrie had always been taken with simple pleasures, singing, laughing, dancing. Now more than ever, material things held little or no significance. When people die, you always hear the expression, "You can't take it with you." Morrie seemed to know that a long time ago. We've got a form of brainwashing going on in our country, Morrie sighed. Do you know how they brainwash people? They repeat something over and over. And that's what we do in this country. Owning things is good. More money is good. More property is good. More commercialism is good. More is good. More is good. We repeat it and have it repeated to us over and over until nobody bothers to even think otherwise. The average person is so fogged up by all this, he has no perspective on what's really important anymore. Wherever I went in my life, I met people wanting to gobble up something new. Gobble up a new car, gobble up a new piece of property, gobble up the latest toy. And then they wanted to tell you all about it. Guess what I got? Guess what I got? You know how I always interrupted that? These were people so hungry for love that they were accepting substitutes. They were embracing material things and expecting a sort of hug back, but it never works. You can't substitute material things for love or for gentleness or for tenderness or for a sense of comradeship. Money is not a substitute for tenderness, and power is not a substitute for tenderness. I can tell you, as I'm sitting here dying, when you most need it, neither money nor power will give you the feeling you're looking for, no matter how much of them you have. I glanced around Morrie's study. It was the same today as it had been the first day I arrived. The books held their same places on the shelves. The papers cluttered the same old desk. The outside rooms had not been improved or upgraded. In fact, Morrie really hadn't bought anything new except medical equipment in a long, long time, maybe years. The day he learned that he was terminally ill was the day he lost interest in purchasing power. So the TV was the same old model. The car that Charlotte drove was the same old model. The dishes and silverware and towels all the same. And yet the house had changed so drastically. It had filled with love and teaching and communication. It had filled with friendship and family and honesty and tears. It had filled with colleagues and students and meditation teachers and therapists and nurses and a cappella groups. It had become, in a very real way, a wealthy home, even though Morrie's bank account was rapidly depleting. There's a big confusion in this country over what we want versus what we need, Morrie said. You need food. You want a chocolate sundae. You have to be honest with yourself. You don't need the latest sports car. You don't need the biggest house. The truth is, you don't get satisfaction from those things. You know what really gives you satisfaction? What? Offering others what you have to give. You sound like a Boy Scout. I don't mean money, Mitch. I mean your time, your concern, your storytelling. It's not so hard. There's a senior center that opened near here. Dozens of elderly people came there every day. If you're a young man or a young woman and you have a skill, you are asked to come and teach it. Say you know computers. You come there and teach them computers. You're very welcome there, and they are very grateful. This is how you start to get respect, by offering something that you have. There are plenty of places to do this. You don't need to have a big talent. There are lonely people in hospitals and shelters who only want some companionship. You play cards with a lonely older man, and you find new respect for yourself because you are needed. Remember what I said about finding a meaningful life? I wrote it down, but now I can recite it. Devote yourself to loving others. Devote yourself to your community around you, and devote yourself to creating something that gives you purpose and meaning. You notice, he added, grinning, there's nothing in there about a salary. I jotted some of the things Morrie was saying on a yellow pad. I did this mostly because I didn't want him to see my eyes, to know what I was thinking, that I had been, for much of my life since graduation, pursuing these very things he had been railing against, bigger toys, nicer house. Because I worked among rich and famous athletes, I convinced myself that my needs were realistic, my greed inconsequential compared to theirs. This was a smokescreen. Morrie made that obvious. Mitch, if you're going to try to show off for people at the top, forget it. They will look down at you anyhow. And if you're trying to show off for people at the bottom, forget it. They will only envy you. Status will get you nowhere. Only an open heart will allow you to float equally between everyone. He paused, then looked at me. I'm dying, right? Yes. Why do you think it's so important for me to hear other people's problems? Don't I have enough pain and suffering of my own? Of course I do, but I give it to other people. But giving to other people is what makes me feel alive, not my car or my house, not what I look like in the mirror. When I give my time, when I can make someone smile after they were feeling sad, it's as close to healthy as I ever feel. Do the kinds of things that come from the heart. When you do, you won't be dissatisfied. You won't be envious. You won't be longing for somebody else's things. On the contrary, you'll be overwhelmed with what comes back. He coughed, and I reached for the small bell that lay on the chair. He had to poke a few times at it, and I finally picked it up and put it in his hand. Thank you, he whispered. He shook it weakly, trying to get Connie's attention. This Ted Turner guy, Morrie said. He couldn't think of anything else for his tombstone. Each night, when I go to sleep, I die, and the next morning, when I wake up, I am reborn. Mahatma Gandhi. The 9th Tuesday, we talk about how love goes on. The leaves had begun to change color, turning the ride through West Newton into a portrait of gold and rust. Back in Detroit, the labor war had stagnated, with each side accusing the other of failing to communicate. The stories on the news were just as depressing. In rural Kentucky, 3 men threw pieces of a tombstone off a bridge, smashing the windshield of a passing car, killing a teenage girl who was traveling with her family on a religious pilgrimage. In California, the O.J. Simpson trial was heading toward a conclusion, and the whole country seemed to be obsessed. Even in airports, there were hanging TV sets tuned to CNN so that you could get an O.J. update as you made your way to a gate. I tried calling my brother in Spain several times. I left messages saying that I really wanted to talk to him, that I had been doing a lot of thinking about us. A few weeks later, I got back a short message saying everything was okay, but he was sorry. He really didn't feel like talking about being sick. For my old professor, it was not the talk of being sick, but the being sick itself that was sinking him. Since my last visit, a nurse had inserted a catheter into his penis, which drew the urine out through a tube and into a bag that sat on the foot of his chair. His legs needed constant tending. He could still feel pain, even though he could not move them, another one of ALS's cruel little ironies. And unless his feet dangled just the right number of inches off the foam pads, it felt as if someone were poking him with a fork. In the middle of conversations, Morrie would have to ask visitors to lift his foot and move it just an inch, or to adjust his head so that it would fit more easily into the palm of the colored pillows. Can you imagine being unable to move your own head? With each visit, Morrie seemed to be melting into his chair, his spine taking on its own shape. Still, every morning, he insisted on being lifted from his bed and wheeled to his study, deposited there among his books and papers and the hibiscus plant in the windowsill. In typical fashion, he found something philosophical in this. I sum it up in my newest aphorism, he said. Let me hear it. When you're in bed, you're dead. He smiled. Only Morrie could smile at something like that. He had been getting calls from the Nightline people and from Ted Koppel himself. They want to come do another show with me, he said, but they say they want to wait. Until what? You're on your last breath? Maybe. Anyhow, I'm not so far away. Don't say that. I'm sorry. That bugs me, that they want to wait until you wither. It bugs you because you look out for me. He smiled. Mitch, maybe they are using me for a little drama. That's okay. Maybe I'm using them too. They help me get my message to millions of people. I couldn't do that without them, right? So it's a compromise. Excuse me. He coughed, which turned into a long, drawn-out gargle, ending with another glob into a crushed tissue. Anyhow, Morrie said, I told them they better not wait too long, because my voice won't be there. Once this thing hits my lungs, talking may become impossible. I can't speak for too long without needing a rest now. I have already canceled a lot of the people who want to see me. Mitch, there are so many, but I'm too fatigued. If I can't give them the right attention, I can't help them. I looked at the tape recorder, feeling guilty, as if I were stealing what was left of his precious speaking time. Should we skip it? I asked, will it make you too tired? Morrie shut his eyes and shook his head. He seemed to be waiting for some silent pain to pass. No, he said, finally, you and I have to go on. This is our last thesis together, you know. Our last thesis. We want to get it right. I thought about our first thesis together in college. It was Morrie's idea, of course. He told me I was good enough to write an honors project, something I had never considered. Now here we were doing the same thing once more, starting with an idea. Dying man talks to living man, tells him what he should know. This time I was in less of a hurry to finish. Someone asked me an interesting question yesterday, Morrie said now, looking over my shoulder at the wall hanging behind me. A quilt of hopeful messages that friends had stitched for him on his 70th birthday. Each patch on the quilt had a different message. Stay the course. The best is yet to be, Morrie. Always #1 in mental health. What was the question? I asked. If I worried about being forgotten after I died. Well, do you? I don't think I will be. I've gotten so many people who have been involved with me in close, intimate ways, and love is how you stay alive, even after you're gone. Sounds like a song lyric. Love is how you stay alive. Morrie chuckled. Maybe. But Mitch, all this talk that we're doing, do you ever hear my voice sometimes when you're back home, when you're all alone, maybe on the plane, maybe in your car? Yes, I admitted. Then you will not forget me after I'm gone. Think of my voice and I'll be there. Think of your voice. And if you want to cry a little, it's okay. Morrie, he had wanted to make me cry since I was a freshman. One of these days I'm going to get to you, he would say. Yeah, I would answer. I decided what I wanted on my tombstone, he said. I don't want to hear about tombstones. Why? They make you nervous? I shrugged. We can forget it. No, go ahead. What did you decide? Morrie popped his lips. I was thinking of this. A teacher to the last. He waited while I absorbed it. A teacher to the last. Good, he said. Yes, I said. Very good. I came to love the way Morrie lit up when I entered the room. He did this for many people I know, but it was a special talent to make each visitor feel that the smile was unique. Ah, it's my buddy, he would say when he saw me in that foggy, high-pitched voice, and it didn't stop with the greeting. When Morrie was with you, he was really with you. He looked you straight in the eye, and he listened as if you were the only person in the world. How much better would people get along if their first encounter each day were like this, instead of a grumble from a waitress or a bus driver or a boss? I believe in being fully present, Morrie said. Okay, let's see how much we have to go. 8th Tuesday and the 9th Tuesday. Okay, so you are going to have to pause it here. Sorry, pause it pause it here and read this page, and then pause it here and read this, and then pause it here and read this,